Welcome, everyone. I'd like to introduce the panel today for our exciting webinar that we have under Connects Partners. We're going to be talking about holistic wellness strategies across our different organizations and our approach to those strategies as far as it pertains to the intersection of the employer responsibility for our associates. I have a great group of subject matter experts with me today. My name is Janakwa Shaw. I'm the Director of Benefits and Leave Administration for the SafeMart companies. I've been at SafeMart for a little bit over 2 years and in the benefit space for close to 25. So we're going to all give our different approaches to this topic that is so prevalent right now. And so I want to again thank my panel for joining me today and answer these questions. We'll go ahead and also introduce ourselves. So first, I'm going to ask everyone, as we talk about the approach to well-being and for all different industries as well, what has helped you? What programs have you introduced? What do you think works well for your employee population? And maybe talk about how you've gone about the implementation and received buy-in from the folks at your organization as well as your leadership.
So my name is Deanna Allison. I'm with Bread Financial, and I am our Director of Benefits, Wellbeing, and Financial Programs. Been here for 14 years, all of that in the benefits space.
Great. Thank you. And then next, I think I'm going to bring up Rhonda.
Sure. So, Rhonda Hall, I serve as the Chief Human Resource Officer for Providence Health, but in the southern part of California. So, I oversee what's called the Coastal Service Area, which is a lovely part of California to be in. And I've got to say, I really like, Deanna, what you just talked about in terms of the different multi-pronged approach to at least communication and implementation and not taking a one and done type of communication style. I think that that's absolutely necessary to engage people, especially in a 24/7 operation like what we have, and where it's very difficult for us to pull our employees away from the bedside or away from their full-time jobs of taking care of our patients. And that means that getting them to take care of themselves sometimes is a challenge, as people who are drawn to healthcare tend to be want they tend to want to take care of others, but that doesn't always mean that they're the best at taking care of themselves. So trying to take that multifaceted approach, similar to what you talked about in terms of really relying on the people managers, as well as a variety of different either imprint or newsletter type of communications. We used quite honestly, we use kind of old school large, almost a billboard, if you will, in the cafeteria to communicate things just in time. So those are just a few of the things that we do.
Corey, I'm going to pass the ball to you and ask if you could answer the same question. Certainly can relate to what Rhonda's talking about as far as putting that oxygen mask on first. And I think a lot of us are guilty of not doing that. So, Corey, you mind answering the same question?
Sure. I'm Corey Gilchrist with Shamrock Foods Company. I'm the Vice President of Total Rewards and HRIS platforms. And we have different approaches depending on the programs that we want to put in place, right? So some of our partner programs demand a little bit more upfront in the face implementations, right? So you might experience that with more of your healthcare system platforms, and then some of them are more of a subtle approach. And I can probably do best by using an example. So we were concerned about the mental health care of our associates, and we all know the stigma behind mental health care, right? We don't always talk about it, and it's not something that everybody's comfortable to talk about. And so we partnered with a group named Marketplace Chaplains. We like to affectionately call them our care partners. And what they do is they're roamers. They roam around our facilities on a daily basis, and they wear a bright pink vest. And we introduced them to everybody as, this is somebody that you can go talk to about mental health care, but more importantly, any stress you have in your life or your family's life or if your kids are having stress, your spouse is having stress, they can talk to this person and they can help you or redirect you to the other services that we have available. Now, our implementation with this was very slow and introductory, right? Because we needed to develop trust around that. And so just by those of us that knew who they were interacting with them in public, in an open area, others saw that, right? And saw that we were comfortable talking with them or pulling them into a room to talk. And it took about a year and a half to where everybody started warming up to this idea. And we could see that in the number of conversations that they would not record from a count perspective, right? Everything's confidential, but they would report to us on how many interactions they were having with people. And, the first year it was like 5,000. This past year, it was 46,000. And so that's for 6,000 employees, right? And so that implementation, we knew it was going to take longer. We weren't stressed about year 1 or year 2 not being a huge impact, but we knew that if we communicated well, introduced it well, always put it out in front and open, that our associates would ultimately gain trust and warm up to it. And so their impact of 46,000 conversations just this last year alone prevented 3 suicides amongst our associates, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of different stories that they keep names, they give you kind of subject matter summaries, but that implementation was very different than, say, a medical plan, which we would approach we'd be upfront, in your face, getting you the information, sitting you at a computer, doing all the stuff that you need to do. So that's kind of the approach that we take to it.
Thank you so much for that example, Corey. Did you tell us about Shamrock Farms?
Shamrock Foods Company is a food distribution company. We compete with basically, if you go to a place that serves food, we provide their food and anything else that they need to serve the food on. So,
well, thank you for those answers. Buy-in, one of the things that you were talking about just now is certainly what I found to be one of the challenges that I've faced in my current organization. We're in our infancy stages of really trying to build a more robust wellness strategy. When I came in, we were, and still are really, at a basic level. If you get your biometric screening, then you get, a wellness discount, and then you've checked the box as far as wellness has been concerned on the back end of our organization. And so right now, I'm in the process of launching a more holistic approach to wellness. And when I like to call it the whole person wellness program, or, we're trying to be well. But what I found is that is challenging is that so many of our associates really don't know what we offer. And so we were strategizing and ready to roll out this great program for wellness and, ask associates to take their biometric screening, but then also do something with those results, because right now we're not requiring that. And so as we talked through it, we found, we really think that people don't know what we have. So let's take a step back and reintroduce, like how people always say, let me reintroduce myself. Well, we're going to reintroduce wellness and our benefits and how we are pouring into our associates. And one of the things that we know is that we've got to have buy-in from the top down, I guess, starts with me type situation. I know that there can be all sorts of, barriers and roadblocks as you try to implement programs of this nature. So is there anything that either of you can add or contribute? I know, Corey, you talked about, trust and things of that nature. But is there anything else that you guys would say are maybe those, kind of boots on the ground problems that you've run into when trying to implement a successful wellness, or well-being program and strategy?
I think what we learned over here at Bread Financial is that the who matters significantly more than the what. right? So in my group, for example, one of the things we figured out very early on, my engagement folks, my people who run our Living Well program, need to be out in front of the people in a fun way. They cannot do discipline. They cannot write people up. They can't do merit increases. There's really none of that sort of tactical HR and compliance work that we can put them on with any success if we want people engaged. The people have to be able to trust them sort of separately without seeing an HR hat on them, if that makes sense, right? And not to dog our HR partners, they're certainly there to help the organization. But what I really need from engagement people for well-being is that they have to trust that it's made by the people for the people. The trust is significant. Corey talked about this earlier. If you don't get trust, you have nothing to build on from that. They really do have to trust you. But it's also that they need to be joiners in the organization. They need to seem fun. I love that Corey's group is putting a visual out in front of the people, the pink vest, right? They do have to be a face for them to go to. They need to see them and trust them. And I've even learned from a leadership lens, I have to take a step back. It can't always be my voice, my face. Sometimes their voice, their face is more impactful because they do trust them a lot.
I think that common denominator of trust being the foundation upon which everything else is built is key. And our role, and for those of us on the screen, I think is truly about how do we establish the trust. It's through consistency, it's through confidentiality, and it's through delivering on what we said we do, right? So one of the things I love that we do in our organization is to demonstrate, especially that last piece about doing what we said we would do, is just a consistent communication that we have that goes out on a regular basis called "You Said It, We Did It," where we're demonstrating, you said this in an employee engagement survey, and therefore this is the action we've taken. Or you said this during the state interviews that we conducted. This was a common theme that we heard from you, and this is what we've done as an organization directly related to it. Or you said this during a town hall, and this is what we've done as a result. Or you said, so we really do highlight the different ways that people can get information to us, and then how we have delivered on what their ask was. And I think that has contributed quite a bit to the trust.
Wonderful. Just want to back up just a little bit and maybe ask about any barriers or roadblocks that you all have had in implementation. Maybe you can talk about, one or two things that have, maybe caused you to take a pause or maybe or stumble in the rollout of these programs and practices.
I think the key to avoiding barriers and roadblocks is to do the research up front, right? So if you pick the right partner is gonna have the fewest roadblocks or barriers that are going to be dealt with, right? So I think that's key. Make sure you pick the right partner. The other barrier that I think is more of an internal barrier, right, that your associates might present to you. And so I think that happens more frequently when you roll out a program that they don't need, right? If you roll out just programs to roll out programs, you might be wasting your time. Find something that they need or that they're voicing their concern about through their engagement surveys or something, and roll that out, right? Find the best partner and roll that out. And I think the barriers go away by themselves when you do the two of those things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would add a slightly different point of view, and that is, for me, it's making sure I'm engaging my night shift and my weekend shift people, because they don't have the privilege or sometimes the concern of seeing the rest of the organization during its kind of more robust daytime Monday through Friday operations. So a barrier that I think we have to be just very conscientious about, and it's a question. I've been with Providence now for 2 years. In fact, this week is my 2-year anniversary. And I think people may be tired of Rhonda Hall asking this question, but the question I ask all the time is, and how is that going to play out for our night shift? And what about our weekend folks? Like, is that going to be accessible to them? Is it going to be applicable to them? Are they going to be able to find it? And I'm also a firm believer that if we're rolling something out, we really ought to start with our night shift and our weekend and then bring it to the day shift. Because what I've found is that when we start a program on the day shift and then we take it to the night shift, our folks on the night shift feel like they're getting leftovers. Especially if you're doing something and you're giving something away, even if it's something as simple as a t-shirt. By the time you get to your night shift, if you started with your day shifts, then hey, I don't have any double XLs left. Versus flipping it and really showing them we care enough about you, we see you, and starting with that night shift and then rotating over to the days. So that's just one of the barriers that we run into on a regular basis. We have to be conscientious about and very intentional in the way that we roll things out.
Yeah, I like that a lot. We have a very heavily unionized population. And when I came on board, everything was they felt left out. And they're governed by CBA. So that means their medical, dental, and vision is obviously not on the employer sponsored plans. But that did not mean that there weren't other ways that, again, they could be included. And so I've made it my mission to figure out what are those programs that can be rolled out for the entire population, union and non-union. And, even some of just the, smallest things that, you may not would even think about from a perspective or something like that. Some type of benefit that everyone has access to goes a long way. And so I like that approach, and we're doing something, very similar and trying to make sure that everybody, feels included. Lord forbid if it was food, then certainly the night shift wouldn't wouldn't have access to it, or those that are working on the weekend. So that's good to hear, and great to hear that approach as well. So as we move forward and just talk about this a little bit more. Um, and we do talk about challenges, but more specifically, are you dealing with challenges around cost or certain conditions that you're not able to address, or just the investment itself? Because obviously we know that, HR is not a profit center, it's a cost center. And so I think one of the things that we're doing is we're constantly trying to evaluate what programs we need to have in place and which ones we do not, in order to get the biggest ROI and address the highest conditions that we're seeing, need to be addressed. So, are you all having any issues in that area, maybe finding the dollars because these programs are high and expensive, or the partners that you want, to partner with are expensive? Could we talk a little bit about that?
I can address a little bit of that. So maybe looking at I use metrics, right? So I'm looking at claims. I'm looking at not just dollars, a lot of dollars we're looking at, right? But frequency and things like that, because I'm looking for programs that can reduce those, right? Because if I can reduce a certain claim by bringing in a partnered program, the money is there by itself, right? And so if I can save $1 million on MSK claims by implementing a partner that can help mitigate those injuries, then the money in essence is there to pay for the partner itself. If I just add a partner without any metric being monitored to offset that cost, that's where you'd run into a problem, right? The finances aren't there by itself. And so I'm always basing every program off of a specific claim that I'm trying to reduce either the frequency or the cost, and if I implement that partner. So in essence, it pays for itself if you design it properly.
Cool. So we're going to move on just a little bit more. I think that those specific topics that we've just focused on are ones we could probably talk, maybe half a day about, especially considering, our diverse populations and the different industries that we're in. And Corey, you kind of led into talking about data a little bit. And I want to start by this next question around, performance, and how do you, target specifically, engagement? How are you measuring, ROI in other areas? You talked about metrics and how they pay for themselves and how you can turn, the sheer number of, claims that maybe you reduce, take those dollars and then have a partner, pay for itself. And so I certainly can align with, that thought process. But Deanna, can you tell me anything that maybe in your organization you've done, to look at metrics or to, measure performance, in these well-being areas?
Yeah, I can. I think metrics are an interesting dynamic for all of us, right? To Corey's point, we all look at the claims situation, we all look to find the dollars and find a direct correlation. But in holistic wellness, it's not always super cut and dry to do it that way. So I have found what's been tough for my lane is we have to reverse engineer our metrics a bit. So a few years back, we rolled 401k up under well-being because the traditional communications of like shaming people for missing match just wasn't working, frankly. So we had to go a different way. And so, when you're talking to your vendors about that, we have to have the conversation of don't tell me who's in the plan and who's doing well, tell me who's not and who's doing badly. So, we sort of reverse engineer the numbers they give us and say it's great that these people are in the program and doing exactly where we want them, to be for their money. But I'm more concerned about the people who can't afford to save, aren't saving at all, haven't been saving for years. So I think, utilization is great, but utilization for the sake of utilization isn't necessarily the whole story. You want the right utilization for your population. So not everyone should be using mental health. There's a portion of people that should be, portion that shouldn't be. So for us, we don't like engagement without utilization or utilization without engagement. We need both to see a full picture. I think that's big. But I also think you want to see what is broken out and what's broken, what's not working. To Corey's point earlier, we don't look to solve anything that's not a need. So I don't just go to the market and say, let's add this. I look for problems to solve specifically. And then I have to know what the problem is I'm solving for. That's always the big driver for us. You got to know what you're solving for to solve it. So, when you look at who's not participating, why? Does it cost too much? Is the experience terrible? Is it hard to get in, hard to log in? Do they not, can we make single sign-on a possibility? So I think you find that if you reverse engineer not just who is using it, but then who's not, and you start asking more questions about maybe why they're not, you start to get into a very dynamic picture of, okay, well, it's maybe not utilization that's our problem. Maybe we're doing great on that, but it's when we miss so hard that they forget we even have the program. So I think those are some takeaways that we have certainly found is that we have to be able to get to people without shame when they miss the program and revisit. And I love the idea that, you said it, we did it. People love those moments where they get to resonate with I gave feedback and you listened. So that's the other thing we have to do is when they didn't enroll, we have to listen to why. Is it money? Is it experience? What is the real reason? So I think when you're looking at your performance metrics and stuff, you really have to also ask why didn't it work, not just what did work. That's key.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more on that. And that's a great segue into really diving into holistic approach. You mentioned how 401k was moved. And, we don't want anyone in our organizations to feel shamed, but we do, like I said, need to figure out what, that intersection is and what responsibility as employers do we have when it comes to the holistic well-being. And that's the physical, the financial, the mental, and all of it. And, I've worked at organizations where we were so busy taking care of, our customers and our patients. And again, as Rhonda mentioned, not putting those, mask on and taking care of ourselves because we were so busy doing, the work. And then when we started to really look at our own population, we're realizing that, there were some deep financial needs within the organization of people who were coming to work every day. And so then it became really necessary to say, okay, benefits is more than just the health and the welfare. It really, and well-being has to include a financial aspect. because we had people who were homeless. We had people who, were in bathing at our local YMCA's and living in their cars, but still showing up to work. And so I'd like to transition, away from just talking about mental health or the health and welfare, options, and talking about your approach as organizations to a holistic mix and how you're addressing that and what the response has been from your organization.
Yeah, I can start this here. So we've been on a wellness journey, if you will, for about 11 years now. So it's been ingrained in our culture for a minute. And I would say about half of that time we spent on just that pure physical lane, nutrition, biometric screening, sort of that traditional wellness approach. But in 2020, when the pandemic hit, it sort of hit us also that mental health was going to be the next big struggle. So we had to integrate quickly a mental health solution and be ready to solve for that. And then while we were at it, we just said, I don't know that our financial support is where it needs to be as well. Our business had changed significantly at this point. I had a lot of modest income workers that I now needed to support with just paying off debt, or to your point, homelessness. Being transient is a big problem. So, you just have to think through what are the problems that I have and what is the population I'm solving. But for us, it's the whole person, right? Our part of our living well sort of mission is to meet them where they're at. We can't tell them what's right for them. They have to tell us what's right for them. So let them pick and choose what works for them. But, you have to look at things like, do they need advice on managing their money, or do they need help getting out of debt? Do they need help investing, or are they just needing getting support through therapy, which is at no cost to them, because we need them to be able to be mentally healthy as well. The stress of that is a big deal for us to be judgment free in our approach. We don't necessarily care which product you use. We just want you to use the one that works for you. And I think when I look back at a big change for us was to rebrand the financial programs up under this Living Well product, because that did feel very trusted. Suddenly I had people who had self-selected out for fear of judgment coming back into the fold and having conversations with us. So I think the right partner would be key to that as well. But those are new categories that we win awards now where we weren't even in the game before. So it's always fun to see it work and work well.
And I really like what you just said. And one of the things that I didn't think of it this way when I first was looking at mental health for, our folks that are working typically 12-hour shifts, is just the mental fatigue that they have in trying to run a life. And so one of the offerings we brought on board was a concierge service, where you now can have someone who is physically in the building do your either grocery shopping or your regular gift shopping, and they will gift wrap things for you. They'll get the oil changed in your car. They'll get your car detailed. They'll get it inspected for you. They can help with taxes. They can help, make phone calls and schedule the air conditioning repair person to show up at your home. Um, it's phenomenal how doing something as simple as a concierge service really help the mental health of our people. So like you said, that wraparound and meeting them where they are, that was one of the things we heard is, I'm so busy at work, I don't have time to live my life or to manage my life. And so trying to help people manage their lives elevated mental health. And quite honestly, I was a little surprised by the impact it had on mental health.
Yeah, I like to tell my friends life is always lifing. And I think that we all,
It's like
you know,
adulting.
right, we probably can
Everything.
all agree. Some of us are in different areas of our lives. So like I know specifically for me, I'm um in the sandwich generation. I saw a term yesterday. I can't exactly remember what it was, but like I'm working full time. I'm a single mom. I have two teenage daughters. And then I have parents that are aging, and then I'm also trying to manage a relationship. And so life is lifing, and, there are so many things that, we are asked to do. And to your point about this mixture of, having someone over here to be able to manage the things outside of work. But I think that we also have to think about, burnout and addressing that, and that people are feeling like they don't have enough time to do the things that are important, to them outside of work. Now, I don't want to go get my oil changed, so I gladly sign up for that. But I think that that's, certainly important because, I say all the time, if somebody is living paycheck to paycheck, then a lot of times I would imagine that if they do show up for work, they're not productive and they're not fully present. And so that's one of the things that we're definitely trying to do is explain how when we say holistic, how they all touch on one another and why they're important. So if we can address the financial aspect of it, then we hope to address the presenteeism and have less claims on the leave side. And, then people feel better. And then maybe they are exercising or have time to exercise, and then they're able to be more productive at work. So it's cyclical, in my opinion, and it does all touch. I think historically people have not included the financial arm of it, and it's a big piece. It truly is. And the other aspect I think that is important is for people to understand that these programs are not selfish. And I had to talk just yesterday about that it's not selfish, that we want to get you well just so that our business, can do better. We want everybody to be well because we care, and we also don't want people to feel burned out. But even to the extent of wanting people to feel well when they retire, having enough money to continue to live a certain life once they retire, and be physically fit to continue, to enjoy life once they've put all these years into work. And so we want to, stress that importance, as well, because everybody just thinks, well, you want to put in wellness programs because you want claims to go down because you want to save money. And while, yes, that is certainly something that is important, it is a holistic view of why we implement these programs, because we do want people to feel great outside of work and be able to be financially well and physically fit. After they leave our organization. So we're looking at wellness from hire to retire, and what that really means. So I really appreciate all that you guys have added from that approach. So we're going to talk about a little bit more now. AI. We continue to hear AI, and some people think that it's, a cuss word maybe, and others think that it's, really a great tool. And so maybe if we can switch gears a little bit and talk about, how it's been a value add to maybe your organizations, from a wellness perspective or benefits perspective. And if you could share maybe any of the tools that you're using, that would be very helpful. So, Rhonda, do you want to talk about anything that your organization may be using?
Sure. I'll just start with a kind of at an elementary level. Being able to use AI in our caregiver or engagement survey and, the employee engagement survey for me has absolutely been a game changer, because when you get those 21,000 responses, written responses above and beyond the data, being able to truly summarize them quickly and accurately in a way that makes it so that we can truly hear what people are saying and then create an action plan to deliver on what the feedback is that they provided. So while to me that's an elementary use of AI, it is something that has been an absolute game changer for us and has enabled us, I think, to meet the needs of our people faster and more accurately without having to guess. So that's just one, like I said, very simple example.
we've been researching AI since salespeople started selling AI, right? And I'm a little disappointed in general within the HR world of AI and the actual practical applications that are there, because they get oversold, and then people want you to put something AI in there and it doesn't really do anything beneficial. The areas that I am seeing AI start to develop within the HR and benefits world is within your providers' platforms, the AI tools that are being used to steer your associates to the benefits that you have available to them. For example, you hey, I need a doctor, right? And prompts come up. Where are you located? What time of day? What type of doctor do you want to see? Female, male? You can get steered from basics like that to, hey, did you also know that you have a second opinion service that's available to you free of cost, or mental health care, or whatever it might be? That AI bot steering your associate to the benefits that are available to them in our overall package is where I'm seeing the value right now. Because a lot of the times, people, like you were saying earlier, they don't know what we have, right? And if they don't know there's a second opinion available to them before they go get a knee surgery, that would be very beneficial to them and to us. That potentially could avoid a surgery in some cases. So that's where I'm seeing the promise within the AI world and benefits, and I'm really starting to get a little bit excited. I'm testing it right now. I won't get too excited until I prove it out, but that's where I'm seeing it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Deanna, did you have anything to add from your lens on this question?
Yeah, I think like Corey, the space that it's really intriguing is in the vendor space, right? Where they can just, guide you to the right solution. The one that we've seen, I think that's the most in use by our people, that our people are really going nuts over, is when we do an AI demo with our financial vendor that is Bright Plan. So they have an AI virtual assistant in the system that is looked over by a certified financial planner, so they can ask personal questions, and based on the data that's in their account profile, if they, for example, want to say, hey, I'd like to pay down debt of the debt that I have listed in your system, which is the most efficient way for me to do that. It's a custom answer for them. Our people are loving that they can play with that 24 hours a day, and having a lot of fun with that. But I think they're also loving, the topic of backdoor Roth has been very big among our people with the new Roth regulations and stuff. So they're loving that they can get a quick answer without feeling silly asking someone. So I think that, to the point that we can scale and offer and guide them to the right benefits, ours also does the same thing of, if you're stressed about your money, did you also realize you have this mental health tool that can, help put you in touch with someone there? So it's an ecosystem AI impact that I think is going to be really a game changer for all of our vendors as they all come together and start tagging each other. It's going to be really fun.
That's Deanna, I'm glad to hear you say that, because that's where I'm excited it's going to be able to go. That where AI is going to be able to say, yes, if you're stressed about your finances, don't forget you have access to your employee assistance program. And of the 25 sessions available to you this year, you've used 0 or you've used 2. And don't forget, there's 2 options to access. You can do virtual 24/7, or you can make an appointment and meet with the individual who is on site at your location. Here's how you do both of those, right? So it's that guiding and easing the way of people that I am super excited, that I think is like right around the corner. It's not here, at least for us yet, but it's right around the corner. And I just came off a call earlier this morning about, we just celebrated our 6th year with a bot that's embedded in a kind of our online HR system. And the fact it's been live for 6 years, I think it's pretty amazing. And just the growth of what the bot's been able to do, and how to help people navigate the online HR portal, if you will. So I think we're getting closer to that kind of, like you said, more of a wraparound. I can just tell you we're not there yet. We're
And I
getting
think
closer.
we're all, having our different approaches and challenges and things of that nature. And I think that each organization is going to figure out, what works, for them. It's not a one for all and all for one approach to AI. And I think that one of the things that I'm trying to make sure that I explain is that we're using AI to put the human back in human resources. So some of those key touch points are high touch, kind of customer focused, in the face, communication. We're going to let the AI so that our humans can get back to having, a human approach to, being able to help our associates and that are not just focused on task all day, task, task, task. And then, people feel like they can't trust HR or they never can get, the time or the answers that they need. And so we're really selling it from that perspective. Um, are there any, I guess, I think we talked about this, before, but besides, AI, just anything that any of you can add, that you're rolling out that are emerging and, that you've heard about and you really want to share before we start to wrap up the end of this, wonderful webinar.
I mean, the one thing I would share is I'm really proud of the fact that Providence rolled out over the past couple of years some suicide prevention training, and it is really designed to help employees be there for another employee and to give them the skill sets so that they know how to recognize symptoms and to know what to do if they see that in a peer. So it enables peers to be there and support peers. And I absolutely love that philosophy. And because that's who people know and trust the most is each other.
That's promising because AI can't do that. And so again, that kind of goes back to what I'm saying, just being able to put that human back in human resources. Deanna from Corey related to, other programs that your organization is focused on around well-being and you'd like to share or platforms or methodologies.
This year we rolled out a program in partnership to tackle the whole interest in GLP-1s. We wanted to give our associates that don't qualify for those per medical condition, if you will, a way to access those for weight loss, other things for, overall health, right? So we partnered with a company named Found, and they have programs that are weight management programs through coaching, medications. They have lots of free medications that have proven to drive weight loss that are not GLP-1s. But if an associate does want to explore the GLP-1s, they have that option to do so through this program. There is a cost to the associate for the GLP-1s, but for the non-GLP-1s, there's not. But it is a common topic for everybody right now. It's the hot topic out there, and we wanted a way to provide that for them.
Well, I think that's wonderful. It's definitely a hot topic right up there with AI and all the other things that we're hearing in the news. This has been such a pleasure. I said earlier we could talk about these things all day and for hours, but that's because we're passionate about what we do. It's very evident in the time that we've spent that all of you are not only subject matter experts in your areas, but that you care about your associates and wanting to ensure that the programs that are available are communicated well to them, that you hear them, you're asking them what they need and want, and then taking action and really doing what we as employers should be doing to take care of our associates. So I want to thank each of you for your time today and for sharing and wrap this up so that we can get back to taking care of our people. But thank you again for your time and for your contribution and for your expertise today.